Brothers and sisters, good morning. Friday morning here at the church as I'm preparing for the Lord's Day service with you and to worship our King here again. It's a bit of a dreary day out today. I drove over to the church here early in the morning and the fog and the wetness and the humidity is thick, and it can move a person to feel in connection to the way the weather is. It's sunny and bright out, you kind of feel a little lighter, and when it's dreary like that, you can kind of feel a bit down. God in His kindness, as I turned on my shuffle playlist this morning of whatever happens to come up on my phone and my different Christian songs that are there, there is a fountain filled with blood, written by William Cowper, who was essentially for a season the roommate of Pastor John Newton. John Newton is a name you probably know more than William Cowper. William Cowper was one of the co-writers of literally hundreds of hymns along with John Newton. And the great line that strikes me, and someone tells me it's written on Spurgeon's tombstone, although I've never been able to verify that, but makes a great story. The third line of "There is a fountain filled with blood." Ere since by faith I saw the stream, thy flowing wounds supply. Redeeming love has been my theme, and shall be till I die. It's a great thing to think of as an epitaph over one's life, whether it's on a tombstone or the bumper stickers over our lives, so to speak, to think that my life is about declaring the goodness of God, in particular in pointing to the shed blood of our King. The psalmist in Psalm 92, has much to say about declaring God's praise. He says, "It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your steadfast love in the morning and your faithfulness by night, with the music of the lute and the harp, the melody of the lyre. For you, O Lord, have made me glad by your work. At the works of your hands I sing for joy." And I'm not a great singer, as you well know. I sound really good amongst those of you who know how to sing, and brother pastors, when we go to different areas or retreats and conferences, I think, boy, I sound really good amongst a bunch of guys who know how to sing. I sing beside my beautiful wife, who sings just beautifully, and yet I sing along to the Lord in the car very often, and I'm just found myself just captured by the truth of that old hymn this morning. It is interesting because where the psalmist says that it is good to declare the steadfast love of God in the morning and his faithfulness by night, it's interesting that he's saying, speak about the firm foundation, the reliability, the unyielding quality of God's love in the morning. At the end of the day, you speak of his faithfulness by night. I'm not sure there's a one-on-one connection there, but isn't it interesting that if you meditate on and stand upon the rock that is Christ throughout the day, that in the evening you look back and you think, right, you've been faithful as you said you would, and you show the veracity and the legitimacy of a claim of steadfast love. You really have steadfast love. Your love really has been everlasting. Your love really is eternal. Your care for me has simply not let me go today. You know, I mentioned William Cowper, who's the author of this hymn, along with his dear friend John Newton. You would know John Newton as the man who wrote the hymn Amazing Grace, along with many, many, many others. William Cowper was a gentleman who came to live with John Newton because he was just gripped with inky blackness of depression and suicidal thoughts and just an inability to care for himself in many times, in many ways, for long seasons. And his pastor friend, John Newton, just helped take care of him. And yet when he could get his head up above those inky black waters, Cowper could just see the steadfast love of the Lord. And he could write this just beautiful hymns that there is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Emmanuel's veins. What a beautiful picture. There is a fountain. A fountain has this idea that it's not just a pool that's just sitting there stagnant, but this fountain that is constantly being replenished. It has a sense of never ending. It just goes on and on and on. And there is this fountain that's filled with blood, and it's drawn from Emmanuel's veins. And sinners that plunge themselves beneath that flood lose all their sin, all their guilty stains. And this reality, dear friends, that it is just so good to remind ourselves of. Whether it's the environment outside, whether it's the very significant difficulties that many of you we together are dealing with during these COVID times, that there is a God who is just not overcome by this. And that there's something about declaring his praise that helps us, and that's almost a prescription for pulling us out, perhaps, of some of the discouragement, not necessarily the inky blackness of a William Cooper, but to you and in your moment, it can feel like that, can't it? Psalm 92 continues, "How great are your works, O Lord! Your thoughts are very deep." He goes on to say in verse 12, "The righteous flourish like a palm tree and grow like cedar in Lebanon. They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock. There is no unrighteousness in him." He's saying, from the beginning to the very end of my life, my mouth is equipped to praise and care, or the way God has cared for me. My mouth is equipped to just continue to speak that to those who would listen and those who would be encouraged, and that there becomes this circle almost of encouragement. I would like to encourage you this morning, dear friends, not just with these true words from the scriptures, but with an invitation to join us for in-person worship here in our church worship center on Sunday morning. We do have two services, as most of you know, both at 9:30 and at 11 o'clock. If you could call into our church voicemail, 241-1681, or Downsview Baptist Church at Gmail, or web.downsviewbaptistchurch.com on our website. We need you to register. We want to keep the records as we can, and to be sure that we have numbers that are sufficiently physically distanced. We do wear masks and use our hand sanitizer. We sanitize the church and clean it very well on Saturday, and then in between the services we have no contact bulletins or offering plates, are just simply sitting at the back of the church. But friends, there's something about joining together with God's people that is an expression of our design. That those of you who've not been here for some time, you need this more than you realize, I dare say. And I can say that not from my perspective, but from the testimony of the scriptures. How good it is for brothers and sisters to dwell together in unity. And part of that dwelling means living together and seeing one another and connecting with one another, and doing so to hear the word of God freely spoken of and prayed and even sung on our videos as we listen, and then preached and proclaimed together, and some expression even of the fellowship of God's people. Please come. Call the number, make a reservation, and please come. It's just a 1-hour service. We're truncated a number of our things that we're doing that way because we do want you to be able to be here and to take whatever measures that seem to make the most sense to keep us safe physically. But please do not, I know you're going to say you're not. The admonition is, do not neglect your spiritual health to the degree that some of you may be doing. That self-assessment and self-evaluation, how I'm really doing, the slow effect of this, of being moved away 6, 7 into our 8th month away from the people of God, is affecting us more than we realize. And dear friends, it's hard to see that until there's a real problem there. And the world would love to distract you from that. The devil would love to tempt you that you're fine on your own. Your flesh will tell you, I'm doing just fine. And then before we know it, there's serious spiritual consequences that have crept in to our lives. So please come join us for a worship service here on Sunday morning this weekend. Please continue to pray for Gladys. It's 20 to 9, quarter to 9 right now in the morning, and I haven't heard yet how she's doing. She was essentially in a kind of almost medically induced coma, a kind of life support. The details have been sketchy, but is a very, very serious illness, and we ask you to continue to please pray for her, that God would not waste her difficult times like this, and that her testimony of her life would shine through, even in ways that we have not understood or how it could possibly happen, but that the way that she's dealing with this, even passively, that the people at the hospital and medical officials will know something of how it is that Christians seek to suffer well. So friends, looking forward to seeing you this coming Sunday morning, and Lord be with you throughout this day. Cheers.